Hello, my name is Douglas Bloch. I'm an author and depression survivor. Welcome to another edition of One-on-One with a Depression Counselor. Today's mental health recovery tip focuses on what I call bearing the unbearable pain. Now, what do I mean by this? As I've shared in my other videos, the pain of depression and anxiety is oftentimes overwhelming. I like to think of what William Styron said before he was hospitalized for depression. He writes about this in his book, Darkness Visible. He told his daughter, quote, "I would rather have my arm amputated without anesthesia than to go through the pain I'm going through right now." This is the kind of pain that drives people to suicidal ideation, and it's the pain that we have to learn how to cope with if we're going to survive a depressive episode. And so I was going through that same thing when I was depressed, and I mean, how can you handle that? Well, fortunately, I met a mental health nurse practitioner named Teresa who showed me a technique, and now I want to share it with you. Teresa explained that there were two levels of pain that I was feeling. The first was physiological, the raw pain in my body and nervous system. The second level, and this is where I had some control, consisted of how I interpreted my experience. For example, perhaps I was thinking, this torment is killing me, or this will last forever, or there's nothing I can do about it. Each of these judgments created a neurochemical reaction in the brain that created even more distress. Teresa told me, quote, "The key to reversing this process is to learn to surrender to the pain and not to fight it," unquote. You can imagine doing this by seeing your depression and anxiety as a large wave that is approaching you. Just as you might ride an ocean wave, see if you can ride this wave by breathing into it. Breathe through the sensations, breathing in and out while attending to the sound of your breathing. As you feel the wave wash over you, the sensations of pain will decrease. Think of yourself as surfing the pain. Now, as she was explaining this to me, she suddenly reached over, pressed a tender acupuncture point right here between my thumb and finger, and pressed it really hard, and I just jumped and said, "Ouch, that really hurts." She said, "Breathe into the pain and notice how your experience of the pain changes. Just relax, soften into it, and let my finger just press into your flesh and don't resist it." And as I did that, as I breathed into the soreness and observed my pain in my hand, it softened. And I could hardly feel it after a couple of minutes. "Good work," she replied. "Nice work. Now see if you can do the same thing with your emotional pain. Surrender to it, breathe into it. Eventually the sensations will decrease." So I took her advice, and the next time my pain went up to a 7 on a 1 to 10 scale, where 10 is really extreme pain and 1 is hardly any, when that happened, I sat down, I closed my eyes and breathed into the pain and let it wash over me as a wave would wash over me while I was surfing. Within a few minutes, the pain decreased from a 7 down to a 5, down to a 3. I could get up and continue my day. Now, when I had worked as a salesperson in the corporate world, I learned a technique called the Swiss cheese method, which meant you could break a large goal into smaller, manageable goals. Well, this is what I discovered when I was in my episode. You could take a large block of pain, like you get up in the morning and you say, "Oh my God, the day is just too much. I can't make it through this day." Okay, well, if you can't make it through the day, let's break it down to an hour. Can you make it through the next hour, Doug? Yeah, I can do that, but maybe I would start to really, really feel bad. So an hour is too much. Well, maybe I could make it through the next 10 minutes. Well, if that was too much, maybe I can make it through the next minute or the next second or the next breath. This is how I live sometime, minute to minute, second to second, breath to breath, because we can always get through a breath if we just surrender. Finally, Teresa showed me a final powerful technique to deal with my self-talk when my pain became intense. Whenever I called her up and said, "Teresa, I can't stand this, my pain is unbearable," she said, "Tell yourself instead, my pain is barely bearable. My pain is barely bearable." And I would say that to myself 2 or 3 times, and there was a shift. And the shift was that if I told myself my pain was barely bearable, that meant I could tolerate it. And I didn't have to think about, ending my life or doing anything extreme. So if you find yourself saying, "This pain is unbearable," reframe it and say, "My pain is barely bearable." I hope the information in this video has been helpful to you. If you find yourself in the midst of psychiatric pain that is really intense, or you know someone who is, please share these techniques with that person or try them yourself. I promise they will work. I go into the topic of bearing the unbearable pain in more detail on my website and my book, Healing from Depression, 12 Weeks to a Better Mood. I encourage you to check them out. And thank you so much for watching this video. Until we meet again, I wish you the best in your mental health recovery.